And hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. I am your host, Coach Elex, and I am so very excited to be here, be back. It's been 2 weeks since our last live show. We have been away doing many things. I'll give you some details in a minute, but before that, I want to introduce my wonderful co-host.
Good afternoon. This is Stephen the Medium present.
And
Sure.
Stephen the Medium, for those of you who do not know, he is not just my co-host. He happened to be my husband of 28 years. So, Stephen, how are you?
And an attorney.
And an attorney. That's right. We don't forget. He is an attorney by day and a medium by night.
I'm good. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of different avenues I'm following. So I'm very excited. Just a lot behind the scenes going on.
A lot behind the scenes. So if you follow Stephen the Medium, keep following because there's plenty of good stuff happening and plenty of announcements to be made very soon. If you're not following Stephen the Medium, you need to follow Stephen the Medium.
Thank you.
Because he's just an amazing person to follow with plenty of good stuff. And he has his own show. When is your show, by the way?
It is Wednesdays at 5 o'clock.
Wednesdays at 5 o'clock.
Through the static
here at WARA 1320 AM radio. And as you guys know, my radio show is also a turned podcast. And so if you missed the live show, you can always listen to my podcast, which is available in Audible, Apple, YouTube, and anywhere podcasts are available. And you can find me at Coach Elex or Get a Grip with Coach Elex. So I am super excited about today because before I even start talking about the show, I know I have somebody who's listening to the show. Stephen, you don't even know this, and that is my sister Mari.
Oh, she's listening?
She's listening. So I want to do a shout out to my sister Mari. And why, guys, if you're listening and you don't know the backstory, why this is important is my sister has been battling breast cancer. She was in the hospital after surgery for a long time. And we are now celebrating that she's home. And I know that she is filled with gratitude, as am I and Stephen, for all your prayers, all your thoughts, of your good wishes. And this is what the power of prayer does. It works. And my sister, after a really long stay at the hospital, she's finally home, thank God, feeling a lot better, recovering slowly. She's still in the middle of the journey, but we're very thankful that she is home. So Mari, we love you. And I know on behalf of myself and Stephen and everyone who's listening, we wish you nothing but health and over the next several days and years to come.
You know what, Elix? I don't care for she's battling cancer. I think it should be she's beating cancer.
Well, that's good. That's an awesome correction, Stephen. Let's reframe that, and let's just really let me re-say that she is beating cancer.
Yes, and she's going to, and she is, and we love Mari, and she's going to be better than ever.
And you know what? That's really great that you say that, Stephen, because I tell people all the time, words create worlds, and the words that we speak really create the world that we live in. So I love that you make that correction, for myself, so that going forward, and that goes for me and for any of you. Instead of battling, she's beating the disease, cancer in this case, or whatever that is.
And you know what, Elix? The last thing I'll say about Madi is she is going to get to 100% because we have a date on Space Mountain.
Oh yeah, yeah. I that's a that's a wonderful story. What was it? 2 years ago, we went to Disney, and I invited my sister to come along, and Stephen and I sort of like told her that this is a wonderful ride, and it's really easy, and it's not scary, and
Well,
it's just
it wasn't we, it was me
it was
because
you
I got the
mostly. That's
aftermath after the end. When we got off that ride.
without question. And anyways, she got onto the ride, and needless to say, after the ride, she was sweating bullets, and she had a few choice words for Steven. Anyways, Marty, again, we love you. Thank you for listening, and for anyone out there who is beating cancer, we offer you all our prayers, because there's nothing better than the power of prayer. So over the past couple of weeks, we've been to Puerto Rico. Also, you guys know my mother was dealing with congestive heart failure, and we had to cancel our last trip. And this was a very meaningful trip for her because she has not been home since October 2019. And it was really, really important for her to get back there. And it was important, as important for me to get her there. So we were finally able to make the trip, and it was a success in every single aspect, right? Would you say that, Steven?
Absolutely.
Yeah, my mother did really, really well, and we had a great time. It was a working trip for both Stephen and I, but we made it work, and we had a great time nevertheless, and we got to celebrate somebody's birthday. Happy
That's
birthday,
right.
Stephen.
Thank you. It was a wonderful celebration.
It was a wonderful celebration surrounded by our loved ones. My family, which, they really, really love you, Stephen. So let's see. Today, I am super excited because I get to have a wonderful woman back, and she is extraordinary in so many ways. And she's my friend. She's a well-known leader, global leader. She is a Canadian by background, and she's going to join us. And today's talk is going to be about how to stand up to your inner critic. And I think this conversation is such an incredible thought. It's a thought-provoking conversation because, we don't often pay attention to our inner critic, I think, but it's a very active part of ourselves. And it's that, for those of you who are wondering, well, what is my inner critic? Well, I would invite you to consider that it's that little voice in the background that is constantly criticizing, belittling you, or judging everything that you do. And we all have that. We all have it. And sometimes our inner critic may gets louder than other times. But as I was sort of discussing the subject and trying to figure out with Donna, how to address our inner critic, the one thing that really stood out for me is when Donna said something like, would we allow anyone else to talk to us the way our inner critic does? Or would we be okay with hearing someone else talking to someone we love the way our inner critic talked to us? And I would say that the answer to that is absolutely not. Yet, here we are. We give power to that voice time and time and time and time again, and that inner critic, in many ways, sort of takes over, and if we don't really are mindful about what the inner critic does, and how to mute that inner critic, it will take over our lives, both professionally and personally. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, I ditto to your answer. I would never ever allow anybody to address me or talk to me like over all my years of living internally. I have allowed. It's just when you present it that way, it's boy, it's intense, Elix. It's just intense to think about.
Yeah, and you know what? I thought of, again, as I'm preparing for this show and this conversation with Donna. Donna, by the way, she's a force to be reckoned with, and there's nobody better to have this conversation with than with somebody like her. So I'm really excited about that. But I was thinking about, the times that I've been so self aware of that voice in the background and some of the things that I've heard that voice say to me. And, I've shared with the listeners, all of you, I've shared in the past that, I was a latchkey child, a child that really grew up on my own. I had very little parent guidance because both my parents worked, and I was bullied because I was gay, and I knew I was gay very early on, and in I remember there were times I was also verbally and physically abused. So I remember, there were times where I distinctly could hear that voice in the background, that gremlin really saying, "You are not worth it. You are nothing." And and thank God, I really I am just beyond myself that somehow, if not for the grace of God, that I had somebody like my aunt and I had other guides and mentors that really helped me not give power to that little gremlin in the background. You know what I'm saying, Stephen?
Exactly.
So if this resonates with you, and I suspect that it does because we all have that little voice, I want you to stay tuned, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to have probably one of the best conversations you'll ever have with anyone. We're going to have Donna Carlin talk to us about how to stand up to that inner critic of ours. So we'll be right back. If you want to call us, 508 222 1320. extraordinary leader, extraordinary coach. She's just an extraordinary human, and every time I am around her, I am inspired to be my best self, and I cannot imagine having anyone else have to have this conversation with, because I know if anyone can coach anyone about how to stand up to that little nasty voice in the background, that gremlin, that inner critic that we all have, that would be my friend Donna Carlin. Donna, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. It's good to hear you.
It's amazing to have you. How are you? How have you been?
Oh, we're doing well. Busy, enjoying the great weather we're having, so that we could be outside more, and going on a deep dive for my work. So I'm very I'm settled, like centered.
Donna, I love that, and I am so humble that in spite all of the things that you're doing, and I know that you are a busy woman. You've accepted my invitation to come back and join Stephen and I for these wonderful conversations. So let's talk about that little voice that we all have, that inner critic that is always criticizing, belittling us, judging us. And I shared with people earlier that one of the things that gave me pause was having a discussion when we were talking about how what to talk about in the show, and you mentioned this topic. You said something like, would you ever allow anyone to talk to you the way you allow your inner critic to talk to you? And the answer to that is absolutely not in a million years. Yet here we are. We let that voice, that gremlin, really sometimes run our lives. So tell us, what is the inner voice? What is that inner critic? How would you describe that, Donna?
The inner critic is all our insecurities wrapped up in a tight little bow that you hold on to and own as if it's your only story, and it constantly tells you what you lack. It's unbelievable. I am incredibly fascinated with how people own stories of themselves in the negative. So in the, I'm not good enough, fast enough, strong enough, who am I to be asked to do something like this? The stories that we share and the stories that we tell ourselves fuels that inner critic. It's mind-boggling. So I always look at what is the question you need to ask yourself most often. Not answer necessarily, but ask. That is one of the reasons why I said to you, would you ever allow somebody else to talk to you the way your inner critic does?
No, never.
Exactly. So think about that for a moment. If you asked yourself that question, I'm into reality check questions now. What are the questions we need to ask ourselves to view our lives through a 360 lens? And one of the questions to hold on to is when we talk ourselves out of something or tell ourselves that we're not good enough about something, what if we asked ourselves, would I let somebody else say this to me? And if the answer is no, why are we letting ourselves operate based on that myth?
And so the question that I have is why? Why would you, given the years that you've had coaching people and having these conversations with people, why do you think we allow ourselves? And honestly, Donna, I don't even have the answer to that. So I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about that.
I think part of it is that we aren't aware that we're doing it in the time that we're doing it. I think that we operate so often out of autopilot, and we have been told in many aspects of our lives. I'm going back, to the years that I was in school, where I heard teachers tell kids, "You'll never amount to anything." Like the paradigms that people lived by, the judgments that they operated by. What somebody else thought of them is what they own for themselves. It's changing. I'm happy to say that, kids are not, for the most part, dealing with that kind of stuff. But I look at how we default to our weaknesses, not our strengths, unless, obviously, we are so full of ourselves that we don't notice any weaknesses whatsoever and just think we're the greatest at everything. That's a whole other conversation.
That would be another show, Donna. Let's mark that one, because I'm sure that there's a whole show on that subject. Go ahead.
There is a whole show on that subject. That's I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. It's a self-awareness thing. It's asking yourself, what is the story you want to own of yourself, and are you living it? We don't have those conversations with ourselves. We are so busy outwardly focused on judging other people, on judging people's actions, saying what's good or bad. We don't look at our own contribution necessarily. And then when somebody calls us on it and says, well, what are you doing about it? You go, who am I? I'm just one person. It's like the out, the excuse. It's the caveat that we are able to throw out so we don't hold ourselves accountable for stepping up, doing more, being more. And I think that, it's about personal accountability, how we view ourselves, and giving ourselves permission to fail as well, so that when we say we're not good enough, well, maybe we are, and maybe we have to fail to see just what we're made of.
Now, would you say, Donna, that a lot of those narratives that we have about ourselves start early on in life?
I think it works both ways with some people, and I know your story, and I know that you fought hard against those narratives to be who you are today, and I hope you celebrate that because it's kind of amazing. And then you have people who grew up in an incredibly supportive and loving family, and they are not prepared for the world as it is. They are so used to being supported in every which way that when they get out into the big bad world, all of a sudden they're confronted, then they start questioning, maybe I'm not as good as my family has always told me. And there's, the doubt starts later. It depends on your environment and how you were brought up.
But I think it's fair to say, and what I'm hearing is that we all have a narrative.
Yes.
Sometimes maybe a positive narrative, sometimes it's a negative narrative, sometimes it's a combination of both, but we all have a narrative.
And that has to be learned, right? We don't have that view of ourselves when we're little kids. All we know is to play, whether or not we are loved and accepted, and we just don't have judgments back then. We have to learn them, and we have to learn judgments of ourselves as well. It's not an innate thing that we were born with.
Yeah. Donna, I shared, and I know some of this, as a latchkey child, I grew up with no parent supervision. I had really no support system except for one aunt that was like my mentor. She's like the best thing that ever happened to me, because in the midst of the abuse, the verbal, the physical abuse that I endure, I really do remember early on having that inner critic speak to me and say, "You are nothing. You'll never be nothing." And if not for her helping me change that narrative, I don't know what life would look like for me today. So for those people, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm wondering if it's because you were questioning who you were at the time, and just that questioning was discombobulating without external validation, to tell you that, no matter who you are and what you represent, you're great, and you contribute, and we appreciate you. Your aunt really, stepped up and filled that void. So even, way back, you are going to second guess yourself if you don't have that stable, as in like foundational story of who you are and what you're going to be building on.
Yeah, and when you talk about, was I second guessing myself or questioning myself? Of course I was, because I was also gay. So I was bullied because I was gay. So that was on, and that was very early on. And again, I thinking back, I'm saying, wow, how grateful am I that I had that one person, that had that support system from that one person. What would you say to somebody that doesn't have that? Because there are many people, Donna, and today as an adult, I can tell you, the one person that's everything for me is my anchor. It's Steven. So even
Mm.
when I go into that story today, Steven becomes the anchor and gets me out of that. What would you say to somebody that doesn't have that? How do they come out of this?
I think that we all have an enormous contribution to make to the world. If you don't have that anchor, find somebody else who's struggling and support each other. Realize that you have impact and can make a difference based on your terms. And so if you don't have that person, that anchor, there is somebody out there who is experiencing the same thing. Find an avenue to connect with them and support each other, and realize that you have each other's backs. That will be a starting point. And then ask yourself, what is it that you're contributing to the world? Not what people are telling you you aren't or you should be. Any of that judgmental kind of conversation. Stand for something that's really important to you and live it. And that will continue to strengthen you as you go on.
Oh, that's so fabulous. Donna, we have to take a break, but you got to hang in there with us. We'll be right back because we got to keep on having this conversation. So much value. So we'll be right back. And hello and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. Today we have Donna Carlin, who is helping us navigate the conversation about how to stand up to our inner critic. So Donna, welcome back and thank you for everything you share with us. Such insight conversation so far. Stephen has a question for you.
Well,
Sure.
Donna, how are you?
Hey, Stephen, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too. I was so excited to find out you were going to be on the show. And this subject is, when Elix brought up that question, just about, would you let other people speak to you the way your inner voice does? I thought it was brilliant and it hits so many people. And, one of the things I think more of a comment, and maybe you can give me some feedback from me and everybody else, is that I wrote something, I don't know, a couple of years ago that I realized I was sort of living two different, like I was living two boys in my life. When my dad committed suicide when I was 8 years old, so I had the pre-8 and then the after-8. And the pre-8 was the greatest, just such a good kid and stabilized and loved. And the after 8-year-old was the opposite, was just came, just felt like came from a broken place. And what I sort of realized was that really was reflected in my life, because there were many times that externally people close to me would just say, "Oh my God, Steven's the strongest. He knows what he wants. He knows what he's doing." And then at night when I'm by myself in bed, the after 8-year-old would just seep in and would be completely the opposite. And it's just such a conflict. And I think it just ties into like what that, even when you try to sort of fake out your that language, that inner language, it ultimately, if you don't address it, will come back.
For sure, it'll come back. It's it's heartbreaking to hear what you lived through, and it's very difficult not to try to attach that horrible event of your father's death and suicide to everything that's happened since, because it is a pivotal moment in your life. So, it's asking yourself, what is right now? Not was, what is right now? How am I honoring him, even with who I turned out to be, rather than pull yourself down? It's amazing, people will make determinations that you're so strong and look at how wonderfully you're doing, and not knowing what's going on in your mind when things are quiet and you're reliving a lot of the trauma that you went through, because it's so much easier for them to do that than to listen to see how you might be struggling and how they might be there, as a supportive relationship.
Wow,
and
right.
it's very, very hard to break that. We were talking about that just the other day, being a 2-time cancer survivor, with a tornado sandwiched between that, and then COVID hitting right after my second bout of cancer. It's, saying, holy mackerel, like, if I didn't put things in perspective, from cancer to tornado, I'm going, okay, I beat cancer. What's a tornado? Fine, our house will be rebuilt. And then the tornado, then I got cancer. Well, we lived through a tornado, so I'll get through this as well. And now the pandemic, it's like, give me a break. I've had my more than 3. But every day, I didn't stop working. Even during my treatments, I worked when I could and by choice, but my whole focus was on what am I contributing and how am I making a difference? Because if it has meaning to me, it will energize me.
Yeah. Donna, I love that. In fact, I actually think that is the connection that we have. Donna and I are both fellows with the Institute of Coaching, and we met at a retreat. And, and for me, like in every other professional career, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of, me. I want to stand out. I want to be the best. I want to be the one, the only one. And, so there's a lot of potential for that inner critic to go very active. You don't belong here. What are you doing here? And I will tell you, Donna, and this goes back to the conversations we've had over the years. I just go back to that. And Stephen and I are very connected as it relates to that. We just focus on what it is that we're here to do. For me, is I think about what do I want my legacy to be, and so long I'm doing that, and I even speak it every day, like my commitment, what I'm here to do, what I breathe day in, day out, is I want to inspire people to live their best lives because I'm living my best life. And that's what drives everything. And I'm telling you, Donna, when I think of that, that's my mechanism to mute that inner critic. There's no other, for me anyways. That's what I use to mute that inner critic. So I love that you're highlighting that, because the question that I wanted to ask you is, so for those people who are listening and they are struggling with their inner critic conversations, what are some specific tangible tools or to-dos that you can share with them? Like, how do they stand up to that inner critic? What are things that they could do right now to stand up to that inner critic?
You know what? I'm going to make it easy, because you wrote down 6 amazing things when you posted about this call.
Yes.
And this is what I'm going to base it on. Magnify the negative was the first one that you had. Instead, at the end of the day, reflect on who you touched, what you did that made a difference, what you want to do tomorrow that will make a difference, and the negative will be totally, what's the word for it? Scrubbed out. Because you're going to magnify what your impact was, not what you think you're lacking in.
Yeah. So in other words, the negative will be powerless.
Exactly. Because you're not going to be focusing on it. You're purposefully going to reflect on what you contributed, what you did, who you touched, who you want to reach out to, all of that. And, how could you spend the following day doing what is important? And, make that intention. So it's going to totally erase it. It really works. Do it diligently, write a journal, whatever. Have a conversation with somebody at the dinner table. This is what I did today that really made a difference to me and to somebody else. And I want to share it with you. So, and if you don't have somebody with you, because a lot of people are still isolated, write in a journal. This is what I did. This is my intention for tomorrow, to do what really has meaning to me. And you're not going to even hear that negative stuff. Drawing attention to perceived faults. It's interesting. I told somebody recently that one of the first questions I ask my new client, when I interview them for the first time, what do you suck at? And they just stop and they go, I wasn't expecting that question. I go, we are going to celebrate your shortcomings, and we are going to make you masterful at what you do really well. So we blow their faults totally out of proportion to the point where we're laughing our heads off. We totally disempower what we think our perceived faults are, because where that happens, somebody else is amazing at it. We let them shine by stepping back and saying, we're not great at this. I'm not even going to try to be great at this. And acknowledge and celebrate them.
You sort of answer. I was about to ask you, because I know that you're known globally for preparing very talented, very well-known clients, high-profile clients for high pressure, high stakes, high potential presentations. And I thought a lot of those clients are uncomfortable. Even highly skilled people are uncomfortable with public speaking, mostly perhaps due to that inner critic. So how do you work with people like that? And I think you sort of answered that question, but is there anything else that you would do to work with those highly skilled people who are up to extraordinary things, yet they may be stopped by that inner critic?
If you're talking about speaking gigs, that kind of thing. People don't want to be told what to do. They want to hear what you did that was so mind-blowing that they realize they have the permission to be mind-blowing as well. If you think of the TED Talks, and the TEDsters that I end up working with, the fellows, they are such extraordinary human beings, and all of them, at some point have an inner critic. Like, who is going to be interested in what I have to say? And I look at them and I go, you've got to be kidding. It's not whether or not they would be interested. How about learning to share it in a way that every single person in the audience could connect to it in some way, shape, or form, because it has meaning to them or somebody in their lives or to the world at large, whatever. So it's the how they frame it, how they share it. And when you share your own personal journey, your own personal story, it just makes it so much easier to get up on stage rather than these PowerPoint things and, telling people what to do and taking them through like a 10 steps to something. Take them through your journey.
And I know all about that because, as you know, one of my commitments is to get on the TED stage, and you've given me some very, very valuable feedback, and I've learned to not walk away discouraged or deflated, but to just really own who I am, own my story, and keep working at getting my message to be better. Because ultimately, getting on that TED stage is not about, well, for some people, maybe about them, right? The ego. But for the ones that are really, the ones that make the biggest difference are for the people that come through that, from that place of, I want my message to inspire others,
Yeah.
to whatever that is. So I hear that loud and clear. Donna, we are going to take another break, but I want you to hang in there with us because there's more we could talk about. So we'll be right back. And hello and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I am your host, Coach Elix, and today we have the marvelous, extraordinary force to be reckoned with, global leadership coach, among many, many other titles, Donna Carlin, and we're talking about how to stand up to that inner critic that we all have. Donna, you talked about coaching TED Fellows, which is a group of outstanding individuals, 20 plus individuals who are chosen every year. What has working with this impressive group of people have taught you over the years?
When we partner with people who are the ones that are going to be game changers in this world, that to me is the biggest gift in my life. To help them get stronger, be stronger, get out there and do the work they were meant to do. Period. They are such extraordinary human beings. Their hearts are in the right places. They want to do great things, and sometimes it just takes that extra little bit of help. They have a dream team that surrounds them to really get up and get out there and do it. And for me to, have that opportunity to work with fellows, and I work with other fellowship programs as well, I just find that at this stage of my career, it's the icing on the cake.
And you know what? I consider myself one of those people. So, and I know the universe brought us together for a reason. And again, I'm beyond grateful. And by the way, you have two for the price of one because Steven is one of the two of us. We're so committed. We are game changers, Donna. I'm telling you right now, that's all we do. Everything that we do is with that in mind. Now, I want to know about your business, No Ceiling Just the Sky Institute. Tell me about that.
The No Ceiling Just Sky Institute is the umbrella organization for our school where we train people in shadow coaching methodology. It's our incubatory, which is where we take ideas and people and we grow them within organizations. So we pretty much take what we do with the TED Fellows internal to organizations so they could grow their innovation, their future leaders from within a unique approach that we take. It's, our coaching and consulting work, obviously, and work that we do with everyone from, first responders to entrepreneurs. So it's an overarching organization that houses the buckets of work that we do. And, we constantly look at what do we need to learn, to grow, to bring in order to expand the impact of the work that we do, and that's the container within which we play.
So would you say that you are the extraordinary human that you are because you're surrounded by such extraordinary people, or would you say that being surrounded or that being the extraordinary human that you are has brought you extraordinary people in your life?
First of all, I'm super blessed with an incredible family and friends who are my family by choice, you being one of them, by the way. And, you look at how you nourish and nurture that, and that's one thing. The second thing is, I think I'm fortunate enough to have so many extraordinary people in my life because I live through curiosity. I'm always amazed at what people think, what they do, what they want to accomplish, and those conversations I have bring lifelong friends. I will never forget the first time I met you, which was at the Institute of Coaching at Harvard, yes. Going to sit down at your table and just looking at you saying, I want to know more about you. And I was absolutely floored. I mean, we continued to talk over our lunch, and we've strengthened our relationship over the years. I was fascinated by your approach, by what you had to say, and I take the time to find out more because it's important to me. It is important to recognize there's so many incredible people in this world. And through LinkedIn, through all kinds of avenues, you have no idea how many people I've been fortunate enough not only to meet, but to continue the friendship with. You look at, I used to do, be one of the writers, one of 15 people from around the world to write for a business blog for Executive Book Summaries years ago. And through that, I met some people that I still maintain 15 years later a strong relationship with. One whom is Steve Harper, who I'm doing a podcast with on Inquiring Minds. We're looking at reality check questions to live by. And this is like a friendship that started by chance years ago. So I think that we all have the opportunity to meet incredible people when we take the time to find out what their stories are and to connect with them.
Mm. That's so wonderfully said, Donna. I remember meeting you and thinking the same thing. Like, I'm gonna sit where these women sit. That's where I'm gonna follow. And I actually think we sat together the whole weekend of that retreat. But what I loved most about you and what I admire most about you is your ability to just be who you are. There's no pretense. There's nothing fake. You are just you, and you whether you like whether people like you, not like you, you don't care. You are you, and that's who you are. And I absolutely love that. By the way, I think my husband Stephen is exactly the same, and I admire that. That's a quality that I so admire, and I've learned to be more like that, to not be so worried about, not give that power to that inner critic and be so worried about what people are going to think or people are going to say, and just be you and honor you, and everything else will align, and clearly it has. So Donna, we're at the end of our very, very short time together, but your invitation is an open invitation, and I know that you'll be back because we want you to be back, and I know you will never say no to me. I hope. anyways,
anytime, it's an honor.
But I've been doing this with my guests recently. It's it's a quick fire little game at the very end. I'm gonna ask you some questions. Don't think about the answer. Just give me whatever comes to mind first. Okay, ready?
Ready.
What's your idea of perfect happiness?
My life right now.
What is your greatest fear?
Not being around long enough.
What is your greatest extravagance?
Extravagance. Buying anything that I need to bake extraordinary things to give away.
I love it. What's your motto?
What somebody else thinks of me is none of my business.
Oh, I love that. And what's your current state of mind?
Content.
Beautiful. Donna, I love you. I'm so happy I have you in my life. I can't wait for you to meet Stephen. So you have an open invitation to come to Cape Cod anytime. Donna, for the people who are listening, and I know people are going to want to hear more about you, learn more about you, how can they connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn all the time, so just look up my name, Donna Carlin, with a K, Karlin. And my website is donnacarlin.com. That's my portal site, so they could get to anything else through that website. And I also have, obviously, there's a way for them to email me through that if they have any questions.
So donnacarlin.com. Donna, thank you so much. The world is better because we have you in our lives. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for everything that you do. And I can't wait to have you back very soon.
It would be an honor. Thanks a million.
Thank you. And with that said, everyone, I think we've come to the end of the show. So it is time to say goodbye. This was a wonderful, oh my God, I'm left, Stephen, so inspired by Donna.
Yeah, the same thing happened when she was on the first time.
Yeah, she's just she's a force to be reckoned with. She's just amazing, just an amazing human being, an amazing coach, an amazing everything. So I feel super blessed to have met her and to have her in my life, and I'm privileged that she agreed to join the show and be a guest. anytime, I invite her. So I'm very happy about that. So, Stephen, where can people get a hold of you?
Stephen the Medium. Just
Steve.
type Stephen the Medium in your computer, your phone, and I will pop up.
And for those listeners who may be listening for the first time and they're not quite sure what Stephen the Medium means, what is it that you do?
It means that I take a size medium. That's it. that's all.
That's probably what they may think. Some of them, just saying. So you need to sort of tell them what is it that you do.
It means that I have the fortunate ability to be able to speak to dead people and hear them. So I connect people with their loved ones.
Yeah, and as Stephen said at the beginning of the show, he's an attorney, and he's also a medium. So that's quite a unique combo. And you can connect with me at Coach Elex. And again, if you want to listen to my previous podcasts, radio shows turned podcasts, you can go to Audible, Apple, YouTube, and listen to any of my shows. And it's been a privilege having you. And we'll see you again next week. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.